All right, howdy. So I decided I'm going to document some upgrades on this Strat. This is my 1983 or 84 Squier Strat, which is modeled obviously on a 70s American Strat with the bullet truss rod, and it's got the 3-point neck attachment in the back. And one of the things that I'm going to do, it's got a kind of a vintage style bridge on it right now, and I am going to replace it with this Gotoh 510, which is a 2-point. So one of the things I have to do here, aside from taking this bridge off, is that I have to mount some pivot points kind of where this thing is. At the same time, I bought some locking tuners for it. These are the standard Fender Japan Schaller copies, and they have been on the guitar since it was new, and I'm going to go ahead and do some work on that. Also, while I've got it, it's not looking too bad. I was going to say I was going to do a little bit of dressing on the frets, but I think they're really in pretty good shape. But then the third thing that I may do to it, this guitar of course originally came with 3 single coils when it was new, and I was playing a lot of hard rock in the early mid-80s, so those weren't going to work. It's had a lot of good pickups in it since then, and I've tried several of them over the years, and right now I've got a DiMarzio Tone Zone in the bridge and an Air Norton in the neck, which I do like better than the super distortions that I had in there previously. Both are great for real heavy sounds, but if you want to clean up at all from that and kind of make less distortion, they're not great pickups. So I'm going to try some different pickups that I've got. I have quite a few sitting around, and I'm going to see if I can't find something that I think gets a range of tones that I like a little bit better. Excuse me while I try to hook this camera up here. And that didn't work at all. Oh, so I'm using the wrong hole. That's what she said. So there we go. I'm going to take that apart at the same time and probably put some Seymour Duncans back in it. I had a mag in there for a long time that I liked really well, and I don't exactly remember why I took it out, actually. It seemed like a good idea at the time, but I do still have the original pickup. So I figure while I've got the thing apart for all this, I might as well take it apart and do that. But I will take some pictures and some video along the way, and hopefully document the process. I've got the old bridge off and the pick guard out of it, and wanted to kind of record this because, as you would say on the internet, this is pretty well gooched. This is some old routing. When I got the guitar, as I've said, it was 3 single coils, and that was the only way you could get a Strat at the time. And I actually am responsible for some of this routing here, which mostly was done with a hammer and a screwdriver. But somebody else later actually did this upper one and to put a pickup in the neck, and then routed some of these round holes down here so that you can have the legs from a humbucker fit down in there. And as you can see, at one point I had a middle pickup that was screwed in instead of on the pick guard. And you can also see some stickers from underneath the pick guard area that I have not taken off. But this is these guitars are kind of strange because I was told a long time ago that these were alder, but then I have been told since that this is senwood. which is actually kind of a Japanese form of ash. And that grain there, basswood is actually kind of more like almost like a balsa. It's very, very soft and doesn't have a lot of grain to it. Sunwood, as you can see here, has some pretty good grain to it, and there's the new bridge sitting in it, and you can see that the holes will line up, which is good. I'm going to need to drill some anchor holes for the pivots, and that's going to be my next step. Alright, so I've got the neck off because I decided it would be a lot easier to drill these holes out on the drill press, and I don't want to have to wrangle the whole neck out here. But here you can see there's the neck plate. It says Fender Japan and SQ381-07. I've never been able to really definitively date that to an 83 or an 84, but I know that the very, very first Japan Fenders were JV, which was where they also did their 57 and 62 reissues. And here you can see a shim from the factory in the neck pocket, which I've never done anything to. The pivot is under here somewhere. I don't think I've used it. I've considered this one, as you can see, even though it's a 3-bolt, and there's an X226 number and a 324, which might be a date code. That might be 24th week of 1983. There you see the metal that the screw from the pivot will buck up against here, and you can actually see too just how much darker the wood is on the exposed part from what's in the pocket. Also, as opposed to a US 70s Fender, these do not have machine screws and or a machine screw down here for the tilt. It's wood screws all the way, all 3 of these. And I have considered, I do have the machine screw to do the US style one, and I've considered actually going to a machine insert here, but I'm not sure if I'll do that on this time around. There's no other markings on the end of the neck to show, you know, anything else about the neck, the date or anything like that. So I'm just going to go ahead now and take these out. These need to get drilled out. There aren't any instructions that came with it, but it looks like 0.350, which is going to be 11/32. So I'm going to go ahead and take these out and take it to the drill press and see what I can come up with that will kind of start getting me to that number as close as possible, and you know, try to keep everything centered up so I don't move the holes at all. Alright, so here's what I ended up with. This was already chunked out of there. I didn't do that just now. I did it about 35 years ago. So I went ahead and bored out the holes. Now, here's some tips that might help somebody else out that's doing this. I did it on a drill press, which is definitely recommended. But the thing with the drill press is you got to get it lined up right. The drill press will drill nice straight holes, but it'll also drill them in the wrong place, and it'll offset your holes if you don't have the drill press set right. So first off, I took a drill bit the size of these original holes, which is 1/8 of an inch, and I put it in the drill. And I used that by lowering that drill bit into the holes to locate the new holes in the body. Once I had that position marked out, what I did was I clamped the body down to the table on the drill press so that it couldn't move, because then the other thing that's going to happen when you're on a drill press is that the the body's going to want to vibrate around and move, and you don't want that. So I had measured these bushings out, and it ended up I actually needed about a 3/8 inch hole to be the right size for the bushings to just press into. And I went up to that in a couple of, I went about halfway from 1/8 of an inch, and then I went all up to 3/8. And did each hole first, and then moved the body around, located it, and reclamped it. And then what I did was, rather than hammer these bushings in, I took the drill bit out of the drill and took a piece of scrap 2x4 and located the bushings where I wanted them, on the hole. And then what I did from there is I lowered the drill press very slowly to kind of ease the bushings into the holes. Now, if I'd made the holes too tight, I wouldn't have been able to do that, but these actually went in really nicely, so that worked out well. So that part of the project seems to be okay. If the rest of it fits up, we should be good to go. Alright, I'm back for a second. Small hitch. There are always hitches in these projects. So here is the back of the new bridge. And you can see that it's got this cool space age tremolo block, and then it's got this deal over here the arm attaches to, and it's got that big brass nut. Well, when you compare it to the type of bridge that I just took out of there, you can see that it's going to extend over a pretty good amount into, it's hard to line this up here. You can see it's going to extend into the area of the hole. So basically I need to cut a half round hole. I'm not very good at photographing this. I need to cut a half round hole at the back there where I just made that dent in order to get this new bridge to fit in. Now, one of the things about this mod is that I could always, if I decided to, I could go back to this bridge and would pretty well cover it back up. Don't want to do that. If I make this hole and it is, I make it a little bit too wide, it's possible that I will have that visible if the old bridge plate goes back under, but I'm thinking not. So I'm just going to go back out to the drill press where I can do a nice controlled kind of gouge of the wood back here and see if I can hog that out a little bit, not too bad, and make the new bridge fit. Okay, so here's another little tip. You can use your drill press as a router table if you don't really want to move around much. So what I did was I put a 1/2 inch Forstner bit on and just basically kind of located it where I needed the hole to be and routed it down there. And it's slightly less barbaric than trying to hog it out with a chisel. One thing that it did do is it took out that little ring of paint around the bit there. And again, this is my guitar, so I don't really care about the cosmetics of it. It's obviously been ridden pretty hard and put away wet. But I will probably take a little bit of black paint and fix that a little bit. It does fit now really nicely, actually. So there it is with the bridge in there, and you just see a little bit of finish around the hole. Actually, it doesn't bother me. I'll probably just go ahead and finish installing the bridge, and I should be good to go. Okay, so there we go. Just got one spring in to hold it. But you can see the holes lined up really nice. I basically just enlarged 2 of the 6 tremolo holes from the classic tremolo, and around the back side here works out really nicely. I've got it decked right now, and I've just got one spring in just to hold it in place. I'm using my original springs in my claw. I don't see any real need to replace those, but it looks like that's going to be a go. I can put the arm on there and make it do bad things. Hopefully it works out. Alright, so bridge is in. I think that's going to work out fine. It sits where it's supposed to sit. It's going to move into position once I put some string tension on it. The second planned part of this project was to replace these original Fender Japan Schaller copies, and to get them replaced I bought these Gotohs, which I'm hoping are going to line up pretty much right on. It looks like they are. And these are locking. They're easy locks, so get them back in camera. They're easy locks, so you kind of open up the hole here on the top with that screw, and then thread the thing through, and it actually locks itself in place just with winding. So should be a pretty cool upgrade. And I just, you know, these old ones, I've been using them for over 35 years, and they're just getting a little bit loose. But I figured at the same time, since I was going to upgrade the bridge, I might as well go ahead and get some higher tech tuners to go with it, so that I don't have to worry as much about how many wraps I got around the end and so forth. So we'll see how that goes. Alright, howdy. I like to do kind of little in-process videos on these things when I'm doing them. So I've replaced just the low E tuner as it is right now. You can see the front of it with this screw looks a little bit different than the original one, and they are shorter shaft, so, and that's fine. I might actually be able to get rid of this string tree altogether. I was considering whether I was going to need to maybe use a different tree. But if those tuners are really that short, I might get enough break angle over the nut I don't need them. From the back, you can see that the buttons and the housings look almost identical. Cosmetically, about the only difference from the back is that the Gotoh has a matte finish to it rather than the chrome. But I'm going to go ahead and finish these up. Alright, so here we go. I've got all the new Gotoh tuners on. As you can see, they were a direct drop-in for the original Schaller mini copies, the Fender Japans. And I'm looking at it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get rid of that string tree or not. If I have to keep this one, it's not that big of a deal. But the tuner swap was about as smooth as you could hope for. So that part's done, and the bridge is done. So now I'm going to put the bridge and body back together, and then I am going to start taking a look at what to put in for pickups. Alright, so here we have the pickups back in. This is the set of pickups that I used in the 80s, as you could tell from the painting on the front of them. And I wasn't paying any particular attention at the time to whether something was a bridge pickup or a neck pickup, because I didn't have much to pick from. So in the bridge I have the mag, which they don't make anymore. They have something called a stag mag. But the idea is that the one of these sets of poles on this, actually both of these are, yeah, there we go, are Strat slugs. So instead of bar magnets, this thing actually has slugs, and it's a splittable pickup. I don't have it set up to split right now, but you can do it. The middle is a stock Squier pickup, and then the original, or the neck, is a 59B, and it's an older one. It's like an 83 or 84, so it's before you can see they've still got their stamped base plate and just kind of a sticker on there, and it's a 2-conductor wiring. So, but this was the sound that I used in this guitar for a long time, so I'm going to go ahead now and wire it all back up and see what I got. Alright, so post-mortem on the mods on the Strat. think this will actually come out to be better light. So I have the Gotoh 510 bridge on there. Like the feel of the arm a lot better. I've got the saddles intonated. The string spacing works out great with this neck. Not something that I considered actually before I got it, although I guess I kind of did because I knew that it was the same spacing down here as my regular bridge. And the Gotoh, I forget what they're actually called, but they're locking tuners, they're easy lock tuners. So to take a look at the back side of it here. You can see if I shine a light down in there. There it is. You can see where I had to kind of cut the extra hole in the body for the tremolo arm boss to go down. The block itself fit fine. There is one kind of a minor hitch, and I have to figure out how I want to deal with this, if I want to deal with it. I'll show you that in a minute. This is all back together, and then of course here are the tuners, and they worked great. They were total swap, drop-in swap. I even used the same screws from the original ones. So now the thing that's a kind of a trade-off, I got a new tremolo because I didn't like the action on the other one, so I got this knife edge 2-point pivot, and it's a much smoother action. The only thing about it is that it won't travel up, and the reason for that is that this edge of the block right here runs right up into the body where it's set. You can see that the bridge itself positions the block far up into the body. So to get room for it to really float, what I would have to do on this body is to basically carve myself out a channel there a little bit on the edge, and I don't think I'm really willing to do that. The tremolo already acts a lot smoother than the other one did. I mean, a lot smoother, and it seems like it's going to stay in tune really well and sound good. I'm about to plug it in and see what I think of these three pickups in here. This is again the exact set that I was using in 84 to 86. Actually, I used this up into the 90s, but I put these in 84. And the painting actually was done later. That's not the original paint, obviously, from the Seymour Duncan factory on there, and then the one of them isn't even a Seymour Duncan pickup. So overall, really happy with how it came out. I'm going to plug it in here in a little bit and play it and see what it sounds like. Alright, howdy. So this is the last section of this video on the upgrades that I did on my Strat. As you can see, I got it back together. These are the pickups that I used to have in it. Had them in there for probably 15 years, starting in about 1984. And then ended up swapping them out for some other ones, and so they're back in there now. I think I mentioned that's a Duncan 59 bridge in the neck, a stock Squier in the middle, and a Seymour Duncan The Mag, which is the predecessor to the current Stag Mag in the bridge. Now, one thing that I had kind of, somehow I didn't notice this last time I had this combination, but the neck pickup is actually flipped around. It's a bridge pickup, right? But it's in the neck position, so I've got it upside down, so the pole pieces that adjust are toward the neck. and I'm not sure if that's what's doing it, but typically the positions 2 and 4 on a Strat are out of phase. So in position 2 I would have the bridge and middle pickups out of phase. Position 4 I would have the middle and neck pickups out of phase. Right now, as it currently sits, the second position is out of phase, but the fourth is not. And so I have to think about what I want to do about that. I don't remember ever noticing that before, but I would so rarely use the in between positions. In fact, if I had put a 3-way in there, I would never have known the difference, and it would probably have been fine with me. But anyway, here you see the Gotoh 510 bridge is on, and so what I did, since what I was thinking of when I got it was that I was going to do something similar to this free flight bridge on this 83 Strat, which actually fully floats both ways. It's meant to sit level and rise a little bit above the body of the guitar. And I was kind of thinking of a similar thing for this, but of course it won't do that because it has a whole different setup, and the tremolo block will hit the front of the cavity if I try to go back while the bridge is level. So I had to kind of rethink that. And what I did with it ultimately was just what I would have done with a normal Strat vintage tremolo, which is to very lightly, I don't even know if you can see that, but to very slightly cant it forward just a tiny bit, because all I wanted out of it really was to be able to flutter the tremolo a little bit. So and not hear the plate hit against the body, and also have just a tiny bit of upward travel so that it's smooth when I flutter it, and if I need to, I can pull back a little bit in case something gets stuck up in the nut or at the tuners. Although while that used to be very common on this guitar with the old bridge and the old tuners, in playing it the last day or so, I have not had a single instance where when I hit the tremolo, it comes right back in stock, so, or in tune. So obviously whatever I did in putting in the new bridge and the locking tuners made a big difference. So there you have it. It's all pretty much ready to go for about the next 35 years. Thanks.